Hello, everyone. I'm here with Dr. Susan Mazur-Stommen. Susan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. So it's been a while since you and I talked. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, though it's a little bit weird for me because you and I, we used to work together. You used to be my boss many years ago. So I know exactly who you are, but it might be helpful to to describe to everyone else. Maybe could you discuss what you do?
Sure. So first of all, I am a cultural anthropologist, and that means I study people. And as a cultural anthropologist, I got my PhD from UC Riverside in 2002. My original dissertation had been on historic preservation and gentrification in the former East Germany. So I've been interested in sustainability in the built environment for a very long time. I am what's called a practicing anthropologist because I support myself with my own firm, which is Indicia Consulting. And yes, you had reached out to me several years ago, I want to say 2018 maybe, and it just happened to work and coincide with a period where I had some perfect projects for us to work together on. And that was a lot of fun. And a lot of that stuff is still up on our website on indiciaconsulting.com, where people can go and find lots of free resources. People who listen to you are also welcome to link into me. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and there's also resources, PowerPoints, papers, things that we might talk about that people might be interested in are also available on LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. And I can include some of these links in the description below. I have a whole other website where I also have kind of cross-published some of this stuff because we did work from way back in the day. Do you want to maybe talk about what you've been up to lately?
Sure. So about since 2018, and I do believe you worked on at least one of these projects, I have been mostly working with Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories on a portfolio of projects related to climate change, heat resilience, and disadvantaged communities, where we have gone to Boston, Atlanta, Fresno, Oakland. I'm trying to think if there's possibly a few more cities I'm forgetting. And we've had 3 or 4 different related projects through the lab that have been multimodal in the sense of they've been both qualitative and quantitative, with engineers and anthropologists working together, and also working with what are called CBOs or community-based organizations in each of these cities. And so my part of this has been to go in and conduct primarily interviews, in-depth interviews, also known as IDIs, focus groups in both English and Spanish, and sometimes working on surveys, and then in-home energy audits oftentimes are also giving us some qualitative data. So I have been working on that, and we are wrapping the last project of that portfolio this coming September. And I'm happy to talk about what's happened since January, if that's something that you're interested in.
Yeah, let's go into that. Yeah, what does this last year look like?
Well, it's been rocky. One of the first things that happened was in January, we were working on one of the projects that had already wrapped, but we were prepared to publish in peer review. And we were really down to, the nitty gritty, the last couple of, deleting spaces and polishing. And unfortunately, I would say part of the blame lies on my colleagues who can be a little bit perfectionist, and they really just didn't see the need for speed, I'd say. And so we got caught up after the inauguration was a full stop, based on the fact that, again, working with disadvantaged communities, Latino, Black, Asian immigrants, very much not on this administration's interest, and very much on their radar. So we were told to fully stop work. And luckily, like I said, that project is already wrapped. So while it is unfortunate that this currently will not be published in a peer-reviewed journal, I believe most of that work is still available. Again, some of it's on my website, some of it's on probably the lab's website. So it did get out there, but yes, they absolutely put the kibosh on that. And then similarly, we've had to tread really carefully with the remaining project. There has been, we've been monitoring it. We have been told, you can or cannot do X, Y, and Z. Working with the community-based organization, in this case, has a Spanish name, so they don't like that. And we've been told, we can't work with them. And so it's been very intrusive. We have, like I said, been, told to slow, stop, or trash work that was already in progress or completed due to this administration.
Yeah, this really stinks. And it seems like, to be able to have work and say, either the publishing of it is pretty nebulous or you're going to have to completely cut it entirely. How has all this felt?
Well, I can't say I was really taken by surprise. So just to go back to 2016, one of the things that happened in 2016 is I actually was asked to speak about what might be the Trump administration impact on environmental science and studies at that time. And I did actually talk, including to folks in Brazil. At that time, I was also the national vice president of Eco Women, which is an organization dedicated to promoting women's careers in the environmental sphere. They are a wonderful organization. They are still busy, and you can find them on LinkedIn and elsewhere. And so I was prepared in that sense. I also was working at the time for Goucher College in the environmental studies department, and that was a new program. It had just been accredited in, I want to say 2014 or 2015. So I had started teaching in, I believe, 2015. And when Trump was elected for the first time, it was pretty clear that a lot of environmental studies were going to be under scrutiny, and we saw that with that program. It really never got off the ground because marketing it, was difficult. People were not necessarily looking to start a career in environmental sciences or studies under those auspices. And so unfortunately, I believe the last time I taught there was 2019, and it died on the vine. So there have been a lot of pretty scarring incidents if you work in this space over the last 10 years or so. It's been rough.
Yeah, this makes sense. What impact do you think this, so maybe for context for any viewer, a lot of your research and a lot of your work is contracted with the government. So this is why funding prerogatives are very key. And, maybe what's the kind of the lay of the land for the wider set of, we'll say environmental contractor space, that kind of ecosystem in DC and in the US overall?
Well, it'll be interesting. First of all, it's bad. I think it's generally bad. One concern that people have, you mentioned this a little, you alluded to this in our back and forth on email, but I will bring this up because it is actually a concern. Number one, they've actually sent the FBI around to talk to climate scientists who've received funding under contracts with the federal government, essentially seeking to accuse them of fraud and claw back the money. And this is the really scary thing for people like myself, who was just a one-person shop. Small woman-owned business. That money is not only not just my money, it goes to people like you worked on a project, we have other folks working on projects. Most of that money goes to, expenses and labor and just what you need to run a business. So there's no money. And if they come back to me and say something like, well, you got $70,000 from this project, we want it back, there's no way I can give that money back. I mean, I would be then on having court cases and possibly go to jail, because they've simply decided that with the power of the federal government that they can yank money back, and they've done that. They have done that. I mean, they did that with NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority. My understanding is they had, I don't know, many tens of millions of dollars already, distributed in a bank account with Citibank in New York, and the Trump administration just yanked it back. And so, if they can do that to something like NYCHA, what do you think they can do to me?
Yeah, this makes total sense. And I like even if it ultimately proves to be unfounded, I bet the legal fees in and of itself would be pretty prohibitive to actually address this kind of scenario in itself. It reminds me of, I mean, I remember, I'm blanking on her name at the top of my head, but there is a woman from the Philippines who was arrested, a journalist arrested under under Duterte, under his regime many years ago. She has since been released, and I believe she's actually a professor at Columbia University, but and has won the Nobel Peace Prize. But basically, she talked about how like Duterte came after her because the mentality was, I'm gonna, he would go after one, like authoritarian, like basically going after like a couple people and trying to kind of destroy them as a way to spread fear and make everyone else think, okay, but what if they come after me? What if they come after me? And it seems like a parallel here, maybe going after a pretty prominent climate organization in New York to kind of make everyone afraid, or what do you think?
Well, they're definitely doing that. So remember, NYCHA is housing; it's not climate. But NYCHA, I would that's an example. Because every contract with the federal or state contract usually has clawback language, and basically it's usually things like if you are accused of turpitude, or if you embezzle money or get caught flashing somebody, they'll take your money back. And in fact, they always do audit you. I think people don't realize what the margins are for this type of work. I mean, you don't go into environmental work because you're going to make a ton of money. And so the very little money that we're already making, is oftentimes on that knife's edge. I mean, one of the projects I think you worked on actually with me, was state of California funded, and they did do an audit, and there was some fear there at one point where they would just be like, we can just take back $10,000, 2 years after the project's closed. And so when you live like this, it becomes extra scary knowing that there's a malicious actor who's really interested in destroying your career and your livelihood, simply because you're actually trying to save the world. I mean, you're trying to work on something good, and these people come along and they're, literally criminals, and they're interested in, stealing your money back. And so, yes, I do think that they are trying to silence people by picking on individuals. I haven't seen anybody reporting that I know of yet that they've had any type of meetings with anybody yet. But I'm sure it's happened. I just don't know of anybody specific.
Right. And I wonder if there is investigation, how many, if some of those people, if people are being investigated, or if organizations are being investigated, if any of them choose to be quiet for the sake of their legal safety, because that can be common in any type of court proceeding, that you don't talk about it publicly, that maybe they're keeping it on the hush hush because that for their own safety. Yeah. Do you,
I do think that's true. Yeah.
You go.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you, do you have a sense for, it seems like with this housing, and I know housing is different from climate, but that they're going after a bit of a larger organization, And in some cases, there's definitely some high profile cases, like Harvard is on the news, which is an extremely large organization. Do you have a sense if they're disproportionately going after bigger players, middle players, or little players? Because there's tons of little consulting organizations like you guys.
Yeah, I think it's mostly starting at the top. I mean, I think here's what scares me though. The scary part is, of course, Doge got in there and they got everybody's data. And my guess is that somebody out there most of them are adults. Most of them are adults. They're all like 19. And as we know, they didn't go to college. I wouldn't trust them to babysit my dog, which I don't have, but there might be somebody actually who's good at machine learning. And I'm kind of afraid that they will go with, using machine learning or an LLM and go through all those contracts and then find small people and then just, issue some type of, bench warrant, subpoena, you know what I mean? Like they could possibly automate that when they get to the small people. Right now, I think it's mostly the big players. I think they're enjoying having somebody like Harvard or UCLA on the ropes and scaring them and throwing around numbers like $500 million. But I don't think that means that people who are small or medium-sized are off the hook. I definitely think they'll get around to us eventually.
Yeah, this makes sense. I mean, this is scary. And on the machine learning side, I mean, I think another side of it is it can be very easy, whether I would consider what I'm about to say good or not. It could be very easy to come up with a very annoying machine learning algorithm. I mean, you have that saying that someone's like, I'm good enough to do a lot of damage, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like you can build a machine. So like I'll pick a slightly different example, which is anti-fraud, which probably from their perspective this would all fit within. So it's actually not that different. But like you can build an algorithm that detects fraud, and but if you build it, and it can be in some ways super accurate, but it's going to be, in the fancy words, it's going to be overfit. It's gonna be hyper specific, and it often will pick up criteria that are very like weird or problematic, like, oh, organizations that have Spanish get marked as fraud. Because of the way that the data that they use. Like these kind of things are very common when you build like a rudimentary machine learning algorithm. And the horribleness of it is they can be super effective in a certain sense. I don't know if I would use the word good for them, but like they can be they can
serve a purpose that bad actors are seeking for them to serve, which is harassment and pulling people out for scrutiny, even if it is on flimsy or non-viable reasons. They can, like you said, do a lot of damage with their. And it's clear. Can you talk a little bit about overfitting? Because people have been joking online, particularly Blue Sky, that it's clear Elon Musk has no idea what he's talking about, and he definitely does not understand models, and so he doesn't understand. Like he's got Grok, and can you just describe what overfit means for lay people? Because I think that's a term that's getting out there and people don't know what that means.
Yeah. So overfitting is being too specific to the point that you make mistakes. And so a good example, because remember, computers are very literal, might be that you think of a good, like, not super controversial example. So say you have
Go with produce.
Yeah, that's where my mind was. I was going to say you have something that's identifying, well, it's similar to produce, but slightly different. So say you have something that's identifying a fruit. What's your favorite fruit?
Let's go with mango.
Okay. What's your second favorite fruit?
Grapes.
Great. So you got pictures of mangoes and pictures of grapes. and you want to figure out which one. So your model is figuring out, this is a picture of a grape, this is a picture, or of grapes, this is a picture of a mango. So say, for the sake of argument, that like all your pictures of like the one store sells grapes and doesn't sell mangoes, and the other store sells mangoes. Well, you're gonna like it might identify features to say this must mean it's grapes, but like it might look at the background of the thing of the video, or of the picture, I mean, and conclude, okay, this design, this store, because it might be able to tell like this color scheme is associated with this store, and be able to tell the different patterns. It'll say this store is more like, the fact that it's in this store means it's more likely to be grapes, and then the fact that it's in this store means it's more likely to be mangoes. Well, that actually might work if I sent, or if you sent, I guess in this case you're the person, but whoever sent them a bunch of pictures about, from their local 2 grocery stores. One was of grapes, one was of mangoes. But obviously, if you then try to tell the difference anywhere else in any other environment, that's going to break down.
Yeah. You're going to get also people, you might actually have it being like, oh, that mango is just a tiny grape. And then like, it's going to start being like, I can put these mangoes together in a grape, like format, and they'll be all like little tiny mangoes, but they look like grapes. You know what I mean? Like there's all this sort of interesting shenanigans that could happen.
That's a good generative AI example, because this is what happens when you take what I just described and kind of do it in reverse, which is what generative AI does. Yeah. So use these ideas to produce things rather than to just purely ascertain this or this. But yeah, like, and you might get this. You get this with like, okay, so you're trying to tell, the difference between deer and dogs, and a lot of your pictures of dogs are indoors because many people keep their dogs indoors. That's what happens with pets. But deer are pretty much always out in the field or the woods or something. So it learns to figure out, okay, the woods and the field tend to be associated. So then it's more likely. So you take a picture of your dog while you're going on a hike, and then suddenly it concludes it's a deer.
It's sort of like overcorrelation. It's basically saying, you know what I mean? Like it's saying like correlation. We always say correlation is not causation, but in this case, they're saying, oh, it's a tawny, 4-legged. It's got these features, and I see trees, deer, and you could be like, oh, it's actually a German Shepherd. There's a saying that I like, and one of my professors actually took it one step further, and it's very germane to what we're talking about right now. Knowledge is knowing tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to use it in a fruit salad. And then he added, but creativity is going ahead and using it in a fruit salad anyway, right? Like, and so I like that because it is, and some of the things that I think both you and I work on is a combination of taking facts or data and turning them into actually usable information, right? And that's the trick, is that you really do need human wisdom to analyze and interpret data. Data is itself not neutral. It's not, how you've collected the data, where it came from, who put it in first, how did they trim it, what got left on the cutting room floor. All of those things introduce bias at different times. And if you are the person who's been in charge of this whole product line, from A to Z, you will know, hopefully, where those biases are introducing and introduce ways to combat bias. But that is 100% not what those people are doing when they are just using like an LLM or, machine learning to do, sorting out mangoes and grapes and tomatoes. So yeah, it's kind of scary because people will just essentially let the machine run, and then whatever the machine outputs, there's no check. There's no human check.
Yeah, exactly. And real quick with the saying it's like overcorrelation, you're exactly right. I think they use the word overfit instead, just because it's less syllables. It's easier to say, but it is precisely overcorrelation.
Yeah.
In another context, sometimes people will say over specification, but don't worry about that. That's also harder to say. Overfits is a lot easier.
Yeah.
With that saying, I might also add, and anthropologists show that there isn't really fruit anyways. Every society has their own fruit or something like that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, I was just, whatever you define, though I will say actually that as an anthropologist, I do think that most experts in a language or culture who are domain experts, for example, on like, let's say produce or plants or botany, in their language, I know we have research that suggests they come very close to binomial nomenclature. And it does actually, we seem to manage as humans to coalesce around a good defined, good definition for these things. That said, and I do love this because there's all sorts of weird things out there in nature. Like people don't really have a good definition of water, of trees. Trees aren't really defined. Like what's a shrub versus a tree? And of zero. Like zero has magical properties. You know what I mean? Like there are mysteries out there in the universe. And what is a tomato? Is it a fruit? And you can get people. Why? Why would we call it a fruit? Well, it's got ovaries and seeds and da-da-da-da. And, you can kind of go down this, but for most people's everyday use, tomato is a vegetable, so it's just one of those interesting things. Like we can get obviously as anthropologists into this area about cultural domains and building taxonomies and, sets of contrasts. And that's very much a lot of where my work is where I tend to land, is kind of in that vicinity, which is one reason why it worked so well when we did some of the machine learning stuff that we did.
Yeah, I think this was an exciting part of what you're doing. And I have also read things about like trees are actually a nebulously defined concept and a number of these. If you've ever had a heated discussion with someone about what a sandwich is, it's like it can be, oh my gosh, there's actually can be a lot of hidden complexity there.